Okay, so I get a lot of questions about my own spiritual awakening. So I thought I would share a little bit about that with you today. Not because you are going to replicate my process, but because it may give you the belief that the miraculous is possible and that things are absolutely not what they appear. So I guess I'll start from the beginning. I woke up in probably, like 2003. It was a year after college. I've completed college on the East Coast of the US. And when I found that eternal space, it was kind of like bliss. I found so much enjoyment in life, but I did not wake up through spiritual enlightenment. I woke up through a very real presence in the now. Now, that moment of now was artificially induced, okay? It happened in the DNA. I wasn't really ready to receive that yet. So what occurred is I found it in the outside world. I found it through the surf. I found it through the ocean. I found it through the air. I united with these very sacred principles, become one with nature all the time. And so what I did is I actually found it in extreme sports. I started skydiving. I would go and jump out of airplanes to feel peace, because that was the real start of it for me. It wasn't through meditation. I hadn't really come to that place, but I had come to the place where that alignment was actually there for me. So instead of driving to a peaceful meadow, I would drive to the drop zone, get out of the car, put my parachute on, and go for a ride, right? And then when I got to 14,000 feet, I would hop out of the airplane and go into deep bliss. And that's where I found it in this space. And I also found it when I took off on a wave, when I settled into that energy underneath the surface, going for a scuba dive. I found it in a lot of spaces that were outside of myself. Now, when I began to see the self wake up and really come online, was a very, very, very different thing. I didn't need that stuff anymore. I could feel just as much bliss, peace, and eternal light through my inside world. I could sit in space and just laugh. I could look around at everyone and everything and see them for the gods and goddesses that they were. I would literally feel them as living light forms. And this started to take shape as I stepped up for me and I stepped up for the others in my life. Now, from the human perspective, stepping up, you may not consider it as stepping up. I left my partner at the time, and that was also my daughter's father. And the relationship wasn't right for me. It wasn't right for him. It wasn't right for her. It wasn't going to change. I'm not saying don't work on things, but for me, when I stepped out of that reality back into truth, everything started to come online. It's like, oh, okay, you're ready. You're ready to embrace existence. And that's when I started walking around like this living light being, able to communicate with God in its purest sense and form. So we were operating, a business partner and myself were operating a clinic with technology at the time that would heal the cell and heal it rapidly. We were seeing, oh gosh, pain, suffering, dissolving instantaneously, organs and tissues regenerating pretty much overnight. Incredible stuff, right? And at that space and time, I started to feel the vibration of the cell and the presence of the being so intensely that I could change it for them. So while the clinic itself was using technology, people would come to me with their thoughts or problems, and I would be able to shift time and space pretty much instantly for them as they spoke. And so I would get people that called and said, oh, you'll never believe just what occurred. And it was, the answers to their prayers that they've been waiting from, because we changed the frequency and the vibration around their space. And they grew up, they graduated into that vibrational reality where they wanted to be. So I continued to do that for a while. I continued to see people as eternal bliss and just like so much magic, light, and love in the space. And then I came back to Earth. I entered into agreements and contracts that I shouldn't have. They were very beneficial because I got growth. But were they needed? No, they weren't. And so at the end of 7 years of that time period in my life, in which I felt like I was literally just getting wrapped up in chains, smothered, senses dulled, pretty much all gone, and the vibrational alignment was low, I came to the awareness this wasn't for me, and I literally checked out of that reality. I said, oh, light language wasn't online at that time, but I said, I can't do this. And I literally just gave up, gave in, and asked the universe to go to work for me. And the universe worked quickly, really quickly, in fact. And before long, maybe within a few days, I had changed my reality again, my vibration. I decided to step out of the contracts that I was in and walk a different space. And so after that, again, the universe, the God within, the God without said, oh, you're ready again. And so I came back up into that vibration in the eternal space. And then all of my psychic gifts stepped in, all of that vibrational alignment and all the tools that I needed, including instant activation of the light body, the genetic sequences and coding that for most of us are offline. And in real world terms, it means that I just woke up in the middle of the night, one night, could feel the resonance of eternal light so palpably. It was literally spinning in the room, and it was creating this vortex of energy in which my genetic structure was ascending and was materializing in a different way. So I had the instant capability to speak in tongues, or light language, as it's called, depends who you talk to, and it activates vibration and matter very quickly. It would be very similar to if you woke up in the middle of the night one night and just knew Japanese or Chinese as your first language and had to translate to English instead. So that activation occurred. I knew exactly why I was here. I knew exactly what was going on. I knew exactly how to change this time, but it was a process that I would need to grow into. So I've been growing into it in the past 5 or 6 years, and really walking that walk and talking that talk, not just pretending that I could. And so that has to do with a real unlayering of the shells and the form that we've created as infinite space. We've created relationships, we've created dichotomies, we've created very real constructs in how we live in our world day to day. And that can come from how we interact with people, our boundaries, our parameters, our levels of discernment, and our ability to literally operate in the outside world. And that all had to come into place for me. I had to realize exactly what Zara, as a human being, had set up. And I had to take steps to rectify these relationships that were out of balance. And relationships that are out of balance are just a reflection of where the relationship is out of balance within the self. So where do we give too much? Where do we take too much? Where do we receive unwisely because we literally don't know any other way? All of these things come into play, and who we let into our life, into our sacred space, is a big part of that. So many of us will settle for a vibration that doesn't match, very specifically because we're lost, we're lonely, or some piece of us is not intact. And so for my personal awakening, I had to go through the pieces that were not intact that I didn't want to see, right? We're all living in this world where our identity, it's like our sleeve, it's our glove. It's very transparent and real all at the same time. But these layers of identity and these layers of consciousness that we've built have to be let go. And these are very old world stories and paradigms that don't require our judgment, but they literally require our love. And so as I've gone through the process of making amends, with what was not aligned in my life, I've had very big fallout. I've had very big real world consequences towards what I set up. And that in itself is no reason to feel shame, grief, or guilt over. What occurs is that if those resonances, guilt, grief, or shame, have not resolved themselves within us to the core of our identity, we will bring up circumstances and illusions, because they're not real. They're in the hologram, they're at play, but they will bring out circumstances for us to create a different relationship with them. Guilt, grief, shame, all very real spiral energies that have been a part of my world. Had I accepted them to the state that they wanted to be recognized? Absolutely not. So I would continue to create occurrences in which I was addressing these shadows, but instead of bringing them in, I was pushing them away. And when I pushed them away, they would vibrate back at an even higher speed. And so that's just something to be aware of. Accept, understand, receive the gift, the emotion, and the energy, the circumstance or situation the person, place, or thing is presenting to you. If you can receive that with arms wide open, without resistance, and let it be, it's going to show you what it wants you to see. And then you can choose a different path. Sutta Kunayanasya. We're not meant to be miserable. We're not meant to be unhappy, unless, of course, we want to. So by seeing these energies doesn't mean you give in to them and you just let grief or guilt take control. It means you allow them to percolate as they will in your eternal light streams, so that they can make peace with the heavenly world. Kasita Kunayanasya. It's a very different approach. And that's what I've been taught all the way. I hope this helps some of you make peace with your own path and start to rectify what's real in existence. If you have any questions very specifically geared towards spiritual awakening, evolution, or enlightenment, I would love for you to reach out to me or drop a note in the comments. What questions can I answer? What topics do you want to see discussed? Kasita Kunayanasya. Let's get to the bottom of the earth plane. Let's get to the bottom of existence so that we can rise up. Umayana Sutayana Sutasya.